everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Globecast. I'm really excited to join Globe as your host, Sunlight. Today, I'm really delighted to welcome novelist, journalist, and broadcaster, just to name a few, Jillian Godsil, and co-founder of Blockleaders. And now to the interview. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Sunlight, for inviting me on the show. I'm very honoured.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So, would you like to explain a little bit about yourself and your background in fintech and PR and how that's led you to your journey on blockchain?
Absolutely. And it's a bit of a long journey, but my background is quite traditional. My first job was at JP Morgan in London. And then I moved from there to Sydney and then to Singapore. And I worked in the fintech, moved from, I was assistant analyst at the start, and moved into fintech, PR and marketing. Then I came home and I started doing more, still fintech marketing and more journalism, because my first love is writing. And I think basically what happened to me was that in 2008, when we had the world's financial crash, I also got hit by it, and I hit the crash and divorced at the same time. So I always say, don't get divorced in a recession. It's not a good time to go down. And a couple of things happened. My husband went back to the UK, and we had a large mortgage on a large house, and he became bankrupt in the UK. And by default, all the debt fell on myself and our two children. It's like my divorce present, if you will. So I'm kind of stuck in the space with what's happening. There's a crash coming. I'm going through divorce. Divorce is very difficult for most people. And then I end up with all the debt. So it's not even a shared debt anymore. So I also at the same time began to discover we had the Celtic Tiger immediately prior to the crash. So a lot of people were suffering because they had overpriced houses and overpriced mortgages, and they couldn't cope because maybe they had job loss themselves or divorce or illness, whatever. It always like a perfect storm for many people. And I became very angry, I guess, because there was also this narrative going on about the banks were saying things like that it was moral hazard, people were gaming the system. And I'm going, ordinary people ordinary folk don't gamble with the family home. This is not what's happening. These are real people in real trouble. And the problem was that a lot of men in particular, who were not so good at talking about stuff, there was a huge increase in financially inspired suicides. So it was just quite frightening. So I began to get very angry. Bailiffs came to my house, to my door. I had all these horrible things all rolled up together. But I started to say, do you know what? I've done nothing wrong. I've just failed financially. And it was very painful, but I thought, no, I'm not going to be ashamed of this, because it happens. Stuff happens to people in life sometimes. Stuff happens to good people. So I became a bit of an activist, and I began to become featured on lots of television and document. I was kind of mad. It was kind of like they'd wheel out a microphone in front of me and I'd start ranting and raving. And in the midst of it all, I was trying to sell the big house. I got a cash offer of 500,000 to someone to buy it, but the banks decided it wasn't enough. It didn't meet the mortgage. So they decided to repossess it. And in doing so, they forced me to bankruptcy because I wasn't allowed, I couldn't hand back the keys. So I now have about $1 million debt and no house, no nothing. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? And I'm also activated. I'm an accidental activist. And I'm actually getting really very cross now, because ordinary people, bad things do happen to ordinary folk, and they're being blamed for it as well. I'm going, this is crazy.
Here's Johnny.
So in the midst of all my ranting and raving, I discovered that as a bankrupt, I was not allowed to run for public office because we'd inherited arcane laws, Victorian laws from the UK. So I said, this is my chance, because I started to say, do you know what? This worm is turning. I've had so much bad stuff. I really want to, turn this corner. So I brought the Irish government to the High Court, and I said my constitutional rights were being infringed because I wasn't allowed to run as a bankrupt for public office. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, but it was overturned. So I changed the law. And then the next elections in Europe actually were the 2014 European parliamentary elections. So I had to run. Little old me, I had no money, I didn't even have a car. I had to borrow a car because my car was out of action. And I ran this campaign for 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. It was the most interesting and scary thing at the same time, because when you're a political candidate, they ask you all sorts of tough questions. There's no easy ride or anything like that. I went from being poor lady deserted to what are your opinions of this, that, and the other. So it was a tremendous experience, I have to say, a very positive one. And I ended up with 11,500 votes. So not enough to get elected, because it was Ireland South and for the European election, so a bigger vote count was needed. But it made a difference, and I felt vindicated. But ironically, I also felt at the same time my life was over, because when you're a political candidate, especially a European parliamentary, even though I was an independent, there was no party behind me, everybody wants to know what you're thinking. It's amazing. People just all come out, they ask all these different questions, and then it all went quiet. I thought, okay, what happens to my life next, And what happened next was, well, it took a couple of years, was that I met blockchain, and I went, aha, this is what I was put on this earth to do. This is why I'm here. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but blockchain is just the most amazing transformational technology, which has the ability, with good people behind it, to change the world for the better. And I went, wow, and I jumped all in. So that's where my love of blockchain came from. A bit of a long story, sorry.
Thank you for being so forthcoming about, experiencing and filing for bankruptcy. It's inspiring to see how you could, bounce back from it. And so how did your discovery of blockchain help you in this recovery?
Well, as I said, I think when I finished the whole political activism area, I thought I was done for. I thought, that's it. I was in my 50s at that stage. I'm going, that's life over. What can I do? I can go quiet into the dark night. And then when I discovered blockchain, I just saw the immense potential it has for the world. And what I love about it is, because I got really upset and cross with like the corporate world and capitalism 2.0, whatever, where it's a real dog eat dog, a zero sum game. And it's, I thought, I don't want to live in a world where for me to succeed, you have to fail. And when I looked at blockchain, I thought, oh, here's a chance where we can all succeed. And that to me is very exciting, that we can get involved with a technology that helps people. And we know there's all different areas from transfer of value, supply chain, you name it. There's a whole rake of different industries that are being disrupted for the better by this technology. So that to me was really exciting. That, and also, at my age, I'm not trying to labor the point, but I'm in my 50s. How wonderful it is to start a whole new career again. I mean, it's just, and to be involved with all these amazing, exciting people and projects. It's mind-blowing. I mean, I feel so privileged that I fell into this rabbit hole. It's like amazing.
That is, honestly amazing. So, so you co-founded Blockleaders. Would you love to tell us some goals and why you founded Blockleaders?
I would love to. Thank you so much for asking that question. I founded with my co-founder back in the day, David Atkinson, who's the commercial director of Holochain, a very honorable man. And we wanted to do something to showcase the founders, the leaders in this space, because the technology is amazing, but technology is nothing without the people. And the people who are coming up with these ideas, they're just so innovative and clever and smart and interesting and empathetic, and they're just amazing. So we wanted to do a publication that looked into the core of these people and find out what made them tick, why they were doing this. It wasn't just technology is great, it's very clever, it's wonderful, but why were they doing these projects? So that was the basis of the idea, to do these founder interviews. And it could be small, it didn't have to be like the big names, it could be small founders, because that's the whole thing about blockchain. You can be a small person and make a big difference, or make a small difference, but it's still interesting. So my co-founder had to step away after a bit, and then I had no money for a long time. And we were going through the crypto winter, and I kept it going, did different deals, whatever. But now I'm going to relaunch it. It's got a whole bunch of new things happening. First of all, I don't know if you were watching the Bitcoin Miami show, where Brock Pierce, one of the founders of EOS, David Bailey, one of the owners of the show, and Jack Helmsman, previous of Malvern Advertising, they launched this platform called Roundtable. And it's a censorship-resistant platform where they're going to put on different publications. So I've approached them and I signed a contract. So Blockleaders is going to go on to their platform. And what I like about that is I'm a writer. I love telling stories, doing narrative, but I'm rotten at sales and SEO and all the rest of it. So they're going to do that. And Malvern, like, for example, would have owned Sports Illustrated. So they've got a huge pedigree in that space. I call it like a juggernaut. That's very exciting, because it'll give me then income. So I can go and buy more writers, buy more stories, expand it. And then secondly, more recently, I was interviewing Tim Draper, who I'm a great big fan of his. And I met him also at Web Summit. And I asked him, and he said, yes, would he become an advisor to the project? So he said he would. So I'm so excited that between these two places, it's going to start to really grow legs again. And what I like about Blockleaders, as opposed to other publications, and I write for a number of the top publications, is that I really like the idea of giving a voice to the people. And that's hard to do, because my one criticism of this sector is that a lot of the copy written is advertorial. And there's less, it's hard to pitch news. You're easier buying stuff with your Bitcoin, whatever, than pitching news sometimes. So I really want to have this platform to be so solid and just have a platform for people, have a voice for people to talk about their projects. So I'm really excited about this going forward.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. It sounds
Thank you.
very amazing. Right, so you've been talking about your partners in this, and forgive me, but it seems that everyone you've talked about has been a male in this, right? And the crypto industry is very male dominated. So, what has been your experience in this, male dominated industry of crypto?
Well, I'm used to a male-dominated industry because I was in fintech all the time. Blockchain and crypto, Web3 is even more. There's only like 7% women, I think, in this space. And I advocate a lot for women to come in. And I often make a joke that because I say, look at me. I said, I'm middle-aged, middle-class lady. I'm not scary. So if I'm passionate about this technology, you can too. I'm not selling drugs. I'm not an anarchist. I'm like your mom or the lady down the street or something like that. So I do work with a number of other groups. Like I work with Lisa Gibbons as my partner in crime, and she and I are doing amazing things. She's an amazing support and writer as well. And plus also I'm involved with things like Bridget Greenwood's The Bigger Pie, which it's a UK based, but it's international too as well, women's group. And I find that in the crypto space, in the Web3 space, people are really very helpful. They are genuinely, but it's kind of nice to have a women only space sometimes because especially when you first come in here, there's so many questions. It is quite complex. It is very different. You have to reset your brain. And it's nice to be able to ask questions in a safe space, ask the stupid questions. And of course, they're not stupid questions, but you're going, oh, what does this mean? And I always ask loads of stupid questions. It doesn't stop, but it's nice to do it someone's in a safe space. And sometimes it can be less threatening in a women's space, in a women's WhatsApp group or women's meetup group, whatever, because when you're the only woman in a room, it is kind of hard. It's you have to have a bit of balls, excuse the expression, to get up and say something. It's not as easy. If it was mixed, it wouldn't be so difficult. And I often joke that if the Lehman Brothers had been the Lehman sisters, we mightn't have had the crash in 2008. So yeah, I'm very keen to get women involved in this space. And not just women, it's diversity in general. Because the one thing that I have learned I think we've all learned in lockdown too as well, but in this crypto industry, community is huge. And community doesn't have any borders. I love the fact that I can be involved with this blockchain or this project. The team members are all over the place. The community is all over the place. And it's your interest in the project. And that's interesting because if you think about it, we're born into a country, like I'm Irish, very proud to be Irish. But, what if I was born in France? What if I was born in Germany? Would I be the same person, different person? And I love the idea that with these communities, it doesn't matter where you're born, it's where your passion is. And that's very powerful too as well. So the community is very, very helpful. And within that, women are even more helpful. So if people are listening to this and especially if you're a woman or you're a newbie or you're a bit worried, join a group. People are so helpful in this space.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have any recommendations on these diversifying groups?
Well, the Bigger Pie, that's the one that I'm in, and it's invitation only. Well, you just apply. It's invitation, so you don't get the bots coming in there. But it's very, very active. So that's super to go get involved in that one.
So, your role in this, so apart from, joining these groups, is there any other advice that you would say as a woman in crypto? Do you have any advice?
Well, I'd say if you're on the edge, jump in. Absolutely. Really get in there. And don't worry, because no one's an expert, really. It's such a new industry. No, there's no experts in here. And if they are, don't hang out with them. They sound horrible. And then if you're on LinkedIn, put blockchain advocate in your tagline and see who turns up. Join online groups, a lot of online groups, of course, nowadays. And then, do you know what? Whatever you are, whatever your career that you're doing, and maybe you're just starting off your career, but because there's so many jobs in this space, if you want to work in this space, actually earn money from the space, if you're a marketeer, say I'm a blockchain marketeer, or and everybody knows that you're learning as you go along. So no one's going to penalize inexperience in this regard because we're all inexperienced, if you like. So my advice is jump in and look for a job, the things you enjoy doing. And of course, there's many jobs nowadays that didn't exist 10 years ago, like community managers and lots of other market makers as well in the crypto space. So there's loads of different jobs that didn't exist before. But whatever you enjoy doing, or just join a community with a blockchain or a project and volunteer. And I think you'll find if you volunteer, you'll often get given jobs, and then you can maybe get jobs because you obviously want to be paid work at the end of the day.
Of course. Yeah. All right. So going down a little bit more of a serious route now. So I'm sure we've all heard by now the rug pull scam of the Squid coin. So, them banking on the popularity of the Netflix show. It's really quite highlighted the darker side, if you will, of crypto. So do you have any advice to traders to kind of look out or avoid these types of scams?
Well, I don't really give financial advice because I'm not a trader myself, okay?
Yeah.
However, however, I think with the Squid, I saw the Squid token, I went, oh, that's fun. And then I read that you couldn't take the money out. And then I read about it being pulled and the guys going off with a couple of million, whatever. The old adage, if it looks too good to be true, it possibly is. Although, mind you, we are in crypto, so crypto is everything looks kind of a bit too good to be true. So I think the obvious advice is to do diligence on the team behind it, and if it's anonymous, and also don't only invest that what you can afford to lose. I mean, I was listening to a podcast some time ago with Andreas Antonopoulos and a couple of other guests, and one of the guests said, well, just buy some Bitcoin. If you don't want to necessarily invest or stake stuff, whatever, put in 100 Bitcoin, buy it, and buy 100 every week, every month, and see what happens to it. And that's kind of like, if you're not a trader or investor, I'd say maybe do that. That's kind of fun. Only as long as you can afford. Not taking food off the table, feed your children.
That's some very good non-advice. Thank you.
Advice, sorry. Apologies.
No. Just to cover your bases, right? Yeah. So now we've talked about the slightly darker side, but on a more positive note, do you think that personally, are there any industries that blockchain are already making positive advances in, or not yet, that you think could have some improvement?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, obviously, blockchain has been around since the 90s, but Bitcoin popularized it. But it's the exchange of value, the peer-to-peer exchange of value. That's one of the really big things I think is so important, because I live in a Western world and I have access to banking. So I have access to credit. Well, as an ex-bankrupt, not really, but theoretically, I have access. I can borrow money. I can pay for stuff on my card. I don't have to carry wads of cash around, whatever. And if I want to buy a car, I can get a car loan. If the mortgage or the rent, I can get help. You can do all these things. But if you're unbanked, I mean, I remember years ago I went to a conference in South Africa. It was actually a seamless payments conference, and all the very earnest people saying, we need to bank the unbanked. And then in the corner, you had the blockchain crypto guys going, no, we need to unbank the world. It was funny, the difference. And it's almost impossible to understand how difficult it must be to run your life without access to credit facilities. I mean, that's the backbone of all the things we do in the Western world, where you buy a house, you buy a car, all the things you need to do, you buy suits for your job, whatever, you get it on credit and you pay it back and you do a balancing act, whatever. So I love the fact that there is an opportunity for people to go where their passion is. And that's another thing too as well. So some blockchains and some crypto tokens are purely fueled by passion. Like I love Dogecoin. I don't actually hold any, so I love it. And I mean, and that was formed as a tipping mechanism. You on Reddit, I can tip you some Dogecoin. Just a nice thing to say thank you very much. And of course, it's gone up in value, and Elon Musk and all the rest of it. And it also, I think, didn't it part sponsor the Jamaican bobsleigh team to go to the Winter Olympics? So mad stuff is done. It's done other good things too as well. So I love the fact. So there's, in terms of credit and finance, people can access value through different coins, different tokens. Electronium's used around the world. It's sort of as a mobile mining token, but people can earn it through, there's a thing called AnyTask, which is like a Fiverr, a gig site. And then they can use it to pay for their minutes, or increasingly for utilities across the African continent. So that's a really basic one. Or I'm involved with a company called Marhaba DeFi. I only discovered recently that if you are Islamic, if you are a Muslim and you follow Islamic financial law, you can't engage in DeFi because of the whole area of interest. But this project, the Marhaba DeFi, is looking to make it halal friendly, halal case, so that if you are a Muslim, you can also engage and use these things. So finance for sure. Supply chain, another huge thing as well, because supply chain, we all know this, and again, I keep on saying in the Western world, developed world, we like to know the provenance of things, so blockchain gives us that. But So while that is important, and as consumers, we can vote with our dollars and our euros, whatever, because we're buying stuff, our pounds. What I really like what's happening is at the far end, the originator of the supply chain. So maybe it's a woman making coffee or something, growing coffee in, I don't know, in the African continent someplace. Increasingly, they can make money too as well by providing the data. They're paid for the data they're providing that we want to say, oh, it's fair trade or something like that, whatever. And that's amazing. Because remember, I spoke to somebody with the Suku network blockchain, and they were saying that type of money you can provide microloans. Now, of course, when we say microloan here in Ireland, 50 to 50 euros, that's not very much money. But 50 euros might be enough for that farmer, that woman, to buy her seed for the next year's crop. So we've got to start thinking about different ways, and that's amazing. And then, of course, NFTs. NFTs are the real popularization of non-fungible tokens, of crypto. And that's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff happening in there. Some really interesting projects. So yeah, there's lots of stuff. It's every day I talk to people, my head hurts because there's so much good going on.
Yeah, gosh, it seems like, there's so many positive things going on. That's, the whole point, right? Yeah. Yep. So, it's very exciting how, Blockleaders is going in a different direction now. Is there anything else you're working on at the moment that you can tell us about?
Do you know, there's a lovely project that is happening. I'm so excited about it. It's actually based out of Portugal. It's called the Santa Casa. It's an ancient museum. It's over 500 years old, but it's also the largest charitable organization in Portugal. It looks after the homeless. It looks after families. It looks after education, child poverty. It tries to eradicate it. So it's a huge organization. So it's like very modern because it works with refugees and people with mental health problems, but it's very ancient because it's 500 years old. So during lockdown, they were saying, how do we stay relevant as a museum? So they're looking at the NFT route. And because they're also a religious organization originally, they have a lot of unique religious artifacts. So if you are of a Christian faith, they have things like, Francis Xavier, who would be one of the early founders of the Jesuits. A lot of his relics are in the museum, including a toe from his foot. It's a long story how that got there, but there's a lot of religious artifacts and ancient paintings. So they're doing that. So they want to do two things. They want to make it relevant. So by creating NFTs, they're able to share these very ancient, very beautiful artifacts, and especially if you have an emotional attachment to a religion. Again, I was saying earlier about if you're a Muslim, you want to live by the laws. If you're Christian, you might have an emotional attachment to these items, and they're going to be dropping their first NFTs in December 1st, finishing the 3rd. And what the nice thing about that is that the money that they earn from the drops, that'll go back into providing social services for the people of Portugal. So it's a really nice NFTs for social causes. So it's opening up the museum, but it's also providing a link back, money and support back into the population, because they have some very strong holistic programs there where they want to look after obviously the whole country and people in need. So I love it's ancient. It's religion. It's just different, and it's NFTs. I love it.
Gosh, wow! Thank you so much for opening our eyes to such a big opportunity that blockchain provides.
No, thank you. I love to talk. Can you tell? I'm Irish. We talk a lot.
Thank you so much, Jillian.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you indeed.
Thank you so much for watching. As this is my first interview here at Globe, any suggestions, for the show or for me, I would love to see them down below in your comments. And if you'd like to follow Jillian, please follow the links below. And also don't forget to like and subscribe and join our social media channels. See you next time.